For this example, we're going to assume that we're going to make a program that has two text entry boxes and a button. Users enter number in each box. When the user presses the button, the software checks to make sure a number was entered in each box. If they're both numbers, in other words digits, it multiplies them together and outputs the product. If the text boxes don't contain numbers, an output error message is given and we restart the process. We're going to build the logic of this process using draw.io to lay out the flowchart. So let's take a look at how that's all going to work. So we're into draw.io, into the draw.io website. We've selected the flowchart group of icons from the left-hand side. Now we want to start off our process like we always do with any flowchart by putting a Terminator, which we're going to call start. So that's the oval shape. We always start with that. Then once we've got that in place, the next thing we want to do is ask the user for some text input. Specifically, we're looking for a digit. So we're going to give them some kind of a prompt, and we've got a text box there that says get them to enter some text in the first box. So we've got some input using the parallelogram shape. Then I'm going to assume that we're asking them separately for those two digits, so we'll go ahead and put another input box for them to enter some text. So again, we've got a second prompt there that's saying, okay, get some more text input. Once we've got the text input, we need to check to make sure that the text input that was entered in those boxes is actually a digit. So we want a number being entered there. So we have a decision tree here that says, did they enter a number or not? So we've got a decision tree. We use the diamond shape for that. Now, after we've checked the first box, we then want to do the same process again for the second box. Make sure that it's also a number. So we'll put a second decision box in place, put another diamond there, and again have a logic check to see whether or not it is actually a digit or a number. So once we've got that, I'm thinking, okay, we probably want to have some kind of display output for them. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to put a display out that gives them some kind of feedback at this point. So I'll go ahead and get the display object, which I'm not even sure what this shape should officially be called, but we'll call it the display shape. We drag it out and we tell it what we want it to display. But as I'm getting that in place, I'm starting to think, okay, maybe that's probably not the next step. I needed to do some other things, right? I haven't done the calculation of the product. So again, this is the beauty of flowcharting in draw.io or in any software. You can easily move things around. So what I need to do first, of course, is calculate the product of the two numbers. Now as I'm doing this, I'm seeing, okay, I'm starting to run out of space. So I want to take things and move it around a little bit. And again, fairly convenient to move stuff in draw.io. Once I've even got the lines and arrows connecting things, you'll also see that when you move things, all of that goes automatically with it. So let's go ahead, actually, at this point, I'm going to start to draw out the flow. So we connect everything with arrows. It's a fairly easy process. You're just finding the right spot on the shape, put your mouse over it, and then you can drag out. So we'll connect everything with arrows. So what I've got right now is basically the straight through flow of what I expect the program to do. But I haven't dealt with any conditions where things aren't doing what I want them to do. So I haven't got any error conditions or anything else happening. The last thing I need to do is put on a Terminator at the very end and call it end or stop or whatever you want to call it. So that's my straight through flow. That's kind of what I logically expect it to do. But I haven't taken into account the decision blocks. So it's saying which way things are going. So for this first decision block, I've got the yes side and the no side. So if that statement is true, it goes on to the next decision block. Keep in mind that decisions can only have one output. So they only have, two outputs. They either have yes or no outputs. They're either true or false. So you can't have more exits out of the diamond. If the first number they've entered isn't, the first text they entered isn't a number, then we're going to give them an error message. So we're using a display object to tell them that, hey, you need to enter a number. And if after we've given them that message, we're going to loop back and tell them to go ahead and enter a number again. So this is one of the things where draw.io can be a little bit finicky in when you try to lay out your paths. Sometimes when you're doing long paths, it doesn't necessarily want to go exactly where you want it to go. So you have to move it around and tweak it a little bit to get exactly the result you want. So now I need to go back to my process box here and tell it what I want it to process. And I decided that, again, the layout here is a little bit awkward. So I just wanted to make it a little easier to follow the flow through. And I needed to finish up all of the logic. So I'm going to put the yes side there, which goes to the computational box, to the processing box. And then I'm going to drag the no side back to the same error message. I could have created a different error message if I want. I could have a second error that was very specific to saying, hey, your second box doesn't include the right, doesn't include a number. But in this case, I decided I would take it to the same error. So I'll tell it exactly what I want it to do. So in this case, we're going to create the product of the two numbers. And again, once I've done that, I'm going to finish moving things around a little bit just to make the flow look nice and smooth. Generally, it's nice to keep the lines going straight as possible and avoid the unnecessary elbows and curves in the process, and not jam everything too close together, but not leave it too far apart either, because as you get more complex flowcharts, you really need to fit a lot of stuff in. And so the tighter you make it, usually the better. But like I said, don't go to an extreme. And that's essentially the process for taking the logic flow that we were thinking of for our program and mapping it out into a straight through flow with some decision trees. And you can see how the decisions build one on the other. You can feed one decision into another, and you can loop back to restart a process if you need to. We use the 5 different shapes that are pretty standard for doing flowcharting, and that's what you need to do for your homework assignment.